What's good, grassroots world? I'm Chris Logan.
I'm Ernie Barber.
And we are the Flagrant 2. Coach, what's going on, man?
Not much, man. Just catching up from the week of basketball, watching games, and watching my son play over the break a little bit, over the last week, rather, not break, but the break's coming up. But getting to watch him play a little bit out in Vegas. They went 2-0, and so good things there. But, yeah, just watching games and kind of thinking through my original top five. I know we'll get into that here in a little bit, along with some of the things that we've seen over the last week. So, what about you?
Oh, absolutely, man. Just always out and about. I definitely visited with a few people last night. They're like, "Hey, Chris, I see you everywhere. You're literally like in one corner of the state, and the next day you're over." I'm like, that's part of my job. That's what I do. But like I tell them, you have to have a love for this to do this.
Yes.
I mean, this is a business where, if you call it a business, whatever, it's definitely got some business, entities behind it. But in my opinion, I don't view it as that. I view this.
It's fun.
I view this as it's fun. And it's also a calling, and I enjoy helping, youth. And I was talking with a college coach actually this morning, and we were talking about, things that we would have wanted when we were growing up.
Yes.
And
I could go on for hours about stuff like that.
How now we have some of this stuff, and people really just need to, don't take it for granted because this stuff that's happening now, and especially in Oklahoma, and maybe we were a little late to the party, is really game-changing, and it's really informative. And we've already, if you've been watching and pay attention to our episodes, we've had, a couple coaches come on here and tell you, like you need to cherish this kind of stuff, and not just this podcast.
Support it,
It just in general, people that are making the basketball community better, it just needs to be supportive. It's excellent. I definitely see some strides in Oklahoma from when I started out doing what I'm doing. But but we will have episodes where we want to talk about some of these things that need to be addressed that are not so good, and we'll get into that on another day because I could talk about that for hours.
Just to piggyback briefly on that, the last 5 years ago to now is light years changed.
Oh yeah,
it's completely different than it was 5 years ago. I remember being a part of it, with my son being much younger then, and it was. I wish he were where these kids are now.
Absolutely.
I mean, it only gets better. But to your point, if we don't support it and we don't get behind it, then those things don't last. And then you think, well, where did it go? I really like that, right? So get behind those that are supporting the kids, because there's many good people out there doing that. Just make sure that you let those people know and support them. I think that's the big thing. And that's what we're trying to do. We're doing it because it's fun and we enjoy it. You mentioned it earlier; it's a calling. But outside of that, it still requires funds to do it.
No, yeah,
right. And so that's where this isn't free. You're driving all over the state isn't cost. It costs money. It's fuel to get there. It's time. Those things, and you're doing it to try to watch kids play, watch kids develop. What are you seeing their development on the floor?
Yep.
What are they doing well? What are things that they could improve on? All that goes into the rankings that you do, that everybody wants to know what they are and how do I fare in that. And everybody's going to have disagreements about this, that, or the other, but that costs money.
No,
and
there's a lot of misconceptions about scouting or media or any of that stuff on how it gets done, and that people just assume it's not like you just sitting in your house coming up with this stuff. There's the actual legwork, but we will have some guests coming forward, down the line here, where we're going to get deep into that stuff, and I think it's things that need to be addressed and exposed on some of the nasty business and kind of the fake stuff that goes on in this business.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's sometimes it's got to be outed, and whether it's uncomfortable or not, we're definitely going to have that conversation.
It's the truth, and it needs to happen. And a lot of that is really those underbelly things that aren't pretty and aren't good. Aren't good for the kids, aren't good for what we're trying to do. That's the whole reason why I got involved in this. Not just this podcast, but just AAU basketball in general. 100% why I got involved in it.
And I've had that conversation with you a while ago about in this market and the void of certain things and just feeling like there's people and people can fill these voids, and if they can, it just makes the community of Oklahoma basketball so much better than what it's been. And we are on an upward tick, like you said, like you just said. We're definitely getting better. There's just still some weeding out that needs to be done, and as long as I'm around and I'm doing this, we're gonna make sure that it gets done. And not everybody's perfect.
No,
absolutely, I have flaws.
Yeah, I do too.
I miss on things. Everybody does. It's human nature. But when you got people that are credible, and when I mean credible too, another thing in the state is if we attach ourselves to non-credible people, we now become uncredible or not credible. So a lot of times I hear someone say, oh, well, this person's the best at that. But it's like you have motives for why you say that. You want help with your kids, blah, blah, blah. But that person's really not credible in the big picture. So you, therefore, become not credible when you attach yourself. Correct. So it's the company we run with, sometimes whether we like it or not, dictates, our credibility and who we are.
Yeah.
So
as the saying goes, I think it's something like this: "Show me your friends, and I'll show you who you are."
That is that's 100,
exactly right.
And that is straight facts because that's absolutely one of the things. But we will have some future episodes in talking about that. It's just some things that I've
some really cool guests coming up.
Cool guests and some things on my mind I've been thinking about. So I figured we will address a little bit of that today. But what we really wanted to get into today was something we're going to call the Flagrant Five, and we basically want to, at least once a month, maybe once every couple weeks, give you our top 5 right now. Rankings are included. I mean, their standings are involved. Maybe it's just our eye test. Whatever, we put it all together. It's a composite score like they do on 247. I always get a kick out of that. Like, okay, well, you either are this or you're not, but we just call it composite when we throw a bunch of stuff together. So this is our rankings and what we see, and we're going to try to give the top 5 from 2A to 6A. And also we'll throw in some teams that we think are definitely right there at the fringe, and possibly next time we do this, they could be up at the top. We definitely want to do some things like that. I want to definitely touch on a couple of games. And that's what we want to make this podcast, as well as an informative thing where we talk about recruiting and we bring in these coaches. We want it to have, we want this to be the high school quote-unquote sports center where you can come for high school basketball and get recaps of what happened over the last, week, 2 weeks, what's some players that are trending, teams that are trending, and get the basketball community engaged. We would love to hear from the audience, coaches, parents, players. Message us.
Yeah, be interactive.
Send us stuff. Send us stuff you want us to talk about. I said it on the last one. Whatever it is, send us things you want us to address, and we will gladly try to put some episodes together and address those things, because it only just helps us and helps you guys.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about what we perceive that the people in this world want to hear, right? I mean, that's really what we're doing. We're talking about teams and players. I mean, that's what people want to hear is, who do we think is on their way up? Who's at the top? Who's on the fringe? Who's got the possibility of coming up? I mean, that's what rankings are about, right?
Yep.
I mean, all that is everybody wants to hear, about their team or their player or whatever, and we understand that, but understanding what goes into that and why we think that and all that's part of this. So, kick off with I know we want to do the Flagrant 5, but before we do that, talk about some of the games you went to this week and some of your feedback on that.
And even to further that, as we get into these rankings, a lot of these teams I saw will correlate with. So when I get to them, we can actually even break down what I saw. But some of the games that I attended in person, I went to Edmond North versus Mustang. I was at Owasso PCO.
That Edmond North Mustang game was tight early.
The experience kicked in the second half. But when we talk Mustang, we're talking the best freshman, I think, in the state right now in Tyson Pogai. Tyson Pogai got a little Trae Young in his game. Yeah, he does. He's modeled, confident, plays well above his years. He plays like a senior. And so that's going to be scary for anybody that watches him going forward. But what I love about him is he he's an actual true point guard, but you can tell that he has studied the game of Trae Young. His shot mechanics are similar. The way he lands on his jump shot looks like Trae Young. The quick release to get it off. I mean, he's got a lot of him in him, and it's refreshing to see. Will the careers mimic each other? That's to be seen. But that'll be very hard shoes to fill, by the way, to fill one of the better players that's ever, if not the best player that's ever came out of Oklahoma and Trae. So, but he's definitely got the makings of a Division I point guard. And the fact that, he's already, looks like a seasoned vet right off the bat is nothing but good. Also, Roman Miller, the junior, one of the kids I talk about all the time. I think he's definitely one of the highest stock risers in that junior class.
What does he have in terms of offers? Does he have any offers that are out there right now?
Not yet. He's got some interest from some in-state schools. Oklahoma State's been down there and visited him, as a matter of fact. That's at practice. And I think that, he's got some high major teams definitely reaching out and feeling out on him.
Sure.
I think that with him is still determining level. And anymore, that's how it's going to go. Like, they're not you could be a D1 kid, but they're waiting right now to see, like, we talked about it on every episode. It's really that transfer portal first and foremost.
Yeah, I mean, there's the you have to get in line.
Yeah, I think Roman is absolutely, because of his versatility and his size. He's if he's 6'3", he's a long 6'3". He looks taller than that. He loves to play two ways. He's a great defensive guy. Great. I always talked about this. He's a great rebounding guard. He's one of the better rebounding guards in the state. But his off the dribble stuff has gotten a lot better. His perimeter game is definitely advanced. He's a kid to me that is absolutely a fringe Division I kid. But in this recruiting market, we've talked about it with how endless coaches that come on here. That doesn't mean that you're going to go straight out of high school.
They may say, you know what, go to JUCO, play 2 years, or at least a year.
Post-grad. I mean, and we're going to get into that even further when we get into some next episodes.
Yep.
I might give you the kids that I think, the top 10 kids that I think would benefit the most from going to a post-grad.
That would be really helpful. And for all the things that everybody listens for, they want to hear what we have to say and our opinions about this or that. That is informative and really honestly is something that the parents and kids really need to listen to. 100%.
And I talked with a couple of these, some of these kids, high school coaches, some of the college coaches that are looking at them, and like, it's the same. Yeah. It's an unanimous, projection that some of these kids literally would double their stock. Whatever they would be double that if they would to do something like a post-grad year where they were able to focus, 8 hours a day on the body.
Wish we would have done that for
I mean,
in my personal experience,
I know.
Wish we would have done that too.
And it also saves eligibility. So, I mean, that's one of the biggest things, but also you're working on body.
Correct.
You get to play in games. So when someone says, well, what's the difference if I go and redshirt? Well, because the difference is you're actually playing in games.
Correct.
So you're able, and playing a lot probably.
Exactly.
So that, I think, is a benefit of it.
You don't develop unless you're on the floor.
You got to get on the floor. I mean, absolutely there's kids out there that just being in a system, if they're good enough, redshirting, they're practicing against these kids every day, but nothing mimics game speed and just game situations. Everybody knows that's ever played a play in this game. It knows that you cannot mimic game.
100%.
But I think we will tap into something like that because there's some kids out there that I think literally could change their life by doing something like that.
Hearing this stuff from you, I think, I mean, because you spend your every waking moment doing these things is extremely informative, and getting your thoughts on that, I think, would be extremely helpful for parents and kids.
And obviously the parent and the kid already has their dream or goal made up. So sometimes you're going to tell them like, hey, I think you should do this. They may not do it anyways. They may say, hell no, I'm not doing that, Chris. Like, my kid's going to go this, and this. But if they would heed that advice, go get a second opinion. Once I tell you this, go talk to somebody. Go talk to your head coach. Probably go talk to your head coach at your school. I bet you anything he says the same thing. And
At least lay out your options and what the pros and cons.
Because reality is, I don't see many cons. I mean, in doing something like that.
Yeah,
I mean, you're telling me I'm going to be a year older. That's what the colleges are looking for.
Yep.
And unless I'm a certified pro in the NBA, age means nothing to me anymore.
Yep.
That's where it matters. The younger the prospect in the NBA, the better off. Because we're talking about contracts,
Yes.
longevity of your career, blah, blah, blah. They're paying hundreds of millions of dollars. In college, they don't care right now about that.
No.
The older you are and more experienced, the better off you are.
They win games. That's what they're there to win games and keep their job.
You know, we talked about it with Coach Rowe. There's no more potential in college once you're there on the campus. It's production. If you're not producing, the potential means nothing. That now is to the pro scouts.
Yeah, do or don't do.
That's it. That's it. So we're hitting a lot of these things we plan on talking about, but it all leads.
We'll get into more detail.
Yeah, it all goes back to hand in hand of the same thing. So anyways, Edmond North Mustang close at the beginning.
Yep. Mustang even had a lead there early, didn't they?
Real early. Mustang is got a team they're gonna beat a bunch of teams that they probably you wouldn't think on paper.
Yeah.
Because they've got some guys.
You've got some talent there. Those guys get clicking. They can beat a lot of guys.
Yeah, and they have some size and Cole Clipson, and they got some guys. Chance Rogers. I mean, they got some guys that can flat out play. So it's just kind of just taking your lumps and growing pains. And I'm gonna tell you this right now. The backcourt of Roman Miller and Tyson Pogai by the end of this season, and for sure going into next year, scary. Scary. If they could put a couple pieces around those two kids, and if I'm a big dude or a wing, I'm trying to with these transfer rules.
Yes. Oh yeah,
put me down. I'm moving on over there because I think that they have a team that can build for the future for sure.
Yep.
So I like them. Too much Dylan Warlick. Too much Keontae Tramble in the end of that game, though. Too much.
Surprise there.
Too much.
And that's one of the things is my thoughts with Edmond North is they're so deep, but yet they've got those two guys that you literally can rely on in every game, even when they're not playing their normal game.
Yep.
They're still better than everybody else most of the time.
And I think we'll just jump into the flagrant five or the flagrant five we're calling, because as I go through these teams, these are teams I've literally watched in person. So I might as well just as we get to them talk about how they looked. My top five for 6A right now. At one is probably everybody's number one is Edmond North. I mean, we just talked about it. Dylan Warlick is an unstoppable force in high school basketball. Yep. Keontae Tramble has fit in seamlessly with them. He's done excellent this season. He's he goes under the radar sometimes.
Doesn't surprise me at all.
It doesn't surprise anybody that knows basketball and has watched a kid play over the last 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
Great player. The Bryce Potts, big man down low, provides them with so much. Dontrell Yearby is their 3-and-D guy. Can spot up in corners, things like that. Knocks down shots for them, big time stuff. Just a well balanced team that right now they're the heavy favorite.
Yeah.
And when I get to number 2, which is Owasso, which by the way, these are our 1 and 2 from preseason.
Correct.
We're sticking with one. Well, I am at least. Coach will get to his in a minute, and he's probably the same on those top 2. Owasso only has 1 loss on the season, and that happened out in Arkansas at Open on the Hill, so they're undefeated in district. I think that they have the biggest win on the season so far by beating Tulsa Union.
Yep.
To me, Jalen Montanati was about as special as you can get in that game. I mean, some of the high-level shot making he was taking, and that's a kid that takes the biggest beating in every game, and a lot of it doesn't get called. Sometimes you become that high rated and you don't get some calls, but this ain't the NBA. In the NBA, you get those calls for being that guy. You're not getting it in high school. I see a lot of you see a lot of people getting up underneath him on his jump shot, trying to take him off. The crazy thing is, in that game against Union, he was lighting them
root
up.
for the underdog, whether they realize it or not.
Right, and that goes into Owasso. I saw them play last night. Bowden Williams was good. Jax Kerr got going towards the end. Cody Lecklider had a bunch of blocks. Like, their team defense last night was very good. I mean, they were engaged as I've ever seen them, and it's almost like a shark. They smell blood in the water, and they pounced on them.
I'll tell you what, if their defense is really, really good, like you mentioned, I mean, that's going to be difficult to beat with size, length, and the offensive abilities that you've got on that squad. Those other role players kick up a little bit, which they will. And a lot of that, I always see that as if they kick up defensively, their offensive game improves, right?
Yes.
So it all goes hand in hand, but it starts on that defensive end. It's going to be really interesting.
The versatility that they have with the length and we got to give credit. Bowden Williams, he's gotten so much stronger from last year to this year, their point guard. He's really physical on these guards, and I like it. It messes it up. It messes them up just because he's physical. I mean, he puts his body on them, and he's hitting them a little bit, and it wears on him after time. And then that leads to steals and things like that, and get out in transition, and that just helps your team. So I love what I've seen from them versatility-wise. And the bigger the game, the bigger the moment, we've talked about it, Montanati is going to do Montanati things. And that's why it's very hard to ever pick against them because, when we get to the TOC next week, I would expect you to see the best version of him you've ever seen. I mean, so that's how it goes. Bigger the game, the bigger the kid steps up when they're like that. And that's the same with Dayton Forsyth. I think you'll see that from him as well. But that's my number 2. My number 3 team is Tulsa Union, who – we've moved up, recently. Their only loss this season is to Owasso, at Owasso. Just simply, we've talked about them enough. Their roster's built like a college roster. We've talked about why. Corbin Gunn at point, the big guys, Eric Madrid, Miles Flemings, Dalen Fuller. We just like that team. They play the right way. They're very hard to defend and stop and can do some things. At 4, I have Choctaw. And Choctaw is the same way. I believe that they only have one loss, and that came from an out-of-state tournament. I just like their team dynamics. I like the stuff that they do. I like the, Jamon Valentine, Camden Hyman shooting the threes. Just a really, really good athletic team that to me, based off last year, how far they got, their experience is just they're confident. They're playing with some confidence right now. So I like them. At my 5, I got Broken Arrow right now. I just watch them. They're another team. They're well built. They play hard. They're defensively, they're in the right spots, and not just when they're on ball. It looks like they know what they're doing. They're monitoring what's going on behind them. They're watching. They look like a team that's well prepared, and I always gotta show kudos to that. David Howell's been great this year. The lead guard is 6'5". Diego Ochoa was excellent last night in a game. Couldn't miss.
5 threes?
Yeah, 5-3. I think it was 5 out of 5, or might even been 6 out of 6. I'd have to look it up. Pretty efficient kid. Always been someone like that. Plays hard. I've got them at 5, and then that's my 5. But we're gonna go. We'll give a couple of teams I think are right there and could definitely be in that next flagrant 5 going next week. PC West definitely is right there in the mix. I know they dropped one to Douglas in an Arkansas tournament. I've loved what I've seen from Rayfield and the sophomore Nate Murthai, Jordan Warrior. I like that team. I plan on them being there at the end. And when it gets to state, they're going to be there.
That's how I saw them projecting last year. That's how I felt about them coming into last year.
I think PC West definitely. Lawton definitely in that mix. They've only got a loss, I want to say.
Westmore, I think.
Yeah, I think that's their only loss on the season. Edmond Santa Fe, we talked about them in the last pod. They're the surprise. I mean, their
Very
only
much
loss
so.
is to Union. It was by 2-3 points at the end of the game. They've exceeded expectations. They're getting a lot of great guard play right now. We already even talked about it last pod. Nick Rhodes, Zayden Best. They just got guys, Christian Hammonds. I mean, I liked them. Money Robinson is a kid I like. They just got a bunch of good guards. We'll see where they end up. I like them right now, though. The district that they're in helps them out too. I mean, that's a big part of this whole thing now. I think it's District 1 is like it's crazy loaded. It's much tougher for those teams.
Yeah, District 1 has Edmond North, Piedmont, Mustang, Deer Creek, Moore, Norman North, Putnam City North, and Capitol Hill.
Yep. And the last two teams I would throw in on my cusp, Deer Creek and Piedmont. You just mentioned them.
Yeah.
Piedmont has looked really good.
Really good.
I mentioned them in the I said it, and a lot of people, listened and were like, Piedmont? When I said them in the preseason, I had to, they added Braden Lloyd, and he gives them some versatility.
Yes.
But we talked about it, is Walker Kennedy having a breakout year.
Go Rogue.
Sophomore Hudson Height, breakout year.
Yeah.
Bryce McConnell. Piedmont looks great.
Yes.
They're definitely in there. Deer Creek, we've talked about them multiple times. They're right there.
Yep.
So that would be my flagrant 5 plus more.
The fringe
guys.
Yep.
You want to give your 6A?
Yeah, I'll give mine.
I don't know how much different it is.
Not much different. I'd say Edmond North, Owasso. I would put Union in there. 3, 4, and 5, you can go in any direction.
Yeah.
I would put Choctaw and Broken Arrow, which is what you did.
Yep.
You could put any of those three, the 3 through 5, in any order. I would also agree with Deer Creek, Piedmont, Santa Fe, and I would even say Edmond Memorial as well.
Yeah.
Lawton obviously has only lost one game, but Edmond Memorial, they look solid. Have won some tough games, which I think is kind of indicative. The teams that win tough games early on, and I think those teams are only going to get better. So I would say those are the fringe teams that I have: Piedmont, Deer Creek, Santa Fe, and Memorial. One team that I'm a little surprised at that I had in my top 5 early that's no longer, and I think I had him in my top 5, or right on the fringe, was Norman. They haven't done what I thought they would do, and I don't know if maybe what the reasons of that are, but I still think that there's some upside there with them, but they're obviously no longer in my top 5, and they're not even in the fringe at this point, but I think that they've got some pieces there that if they do well,
they'll bounce back. I mean, they've taken a couple losses in district, and that's Edmond Santa Fe knocked them off, and if you would have showed me that game on paper, I would have taken Norman.
Yes.
9 out of 10 times, but unfortunately games play out the way they do. Now, with being in district, they'll play each other again, and that they can right that ship. And Norman definitely has a chance to move back up in there.
Yeah, they're District 2, and District 2 is Santa Fe, PC West, Lawton, Westmore, Norman, Northwest Class, and Yukon and Eisenhower.
Yeah, so some of the districts are a little top heavy. District 1 is loaded, and I feel like the other ones are a little they're up and down. But I mean, you can definitely see. I mean, with seeing the district play, you could definitely rack up some wins playing 2 times against some of these teams.
Oh heck yeah!
I mean, it was
a lot easier than playing in the COAC.
Yeah, no doubt about that. No doubt about that.
Yeah.
There's some football programs right now thinking we should move out of this COAC thing and get into because they stayed in the COAC. So,
yes.
Matter of fact, they added Piedmont. I think got into the COAC now in football, but this is just different sports. So we're pretty much almost identical on the flagrant 5.
Maybe a few fringe differences, but other than
that,
couple
different. So I'll go to 5A. Crossings is number 1. I think we've
100%
seen them.
on that.
We
totally
watched
agree.
them in person. We both had this. We walked away from it with the same exact feeling. Crossings is undefeated right now. They're playing. I mean, they're doing the things we said they needed to do preseason. My number 2 would have been a surprise at the beginning of the year, but it isn't. I have Guthrie at number 2. Guthrie has not lost a game. Guthrie has beaten Carl Albert just like Crossings has. They have a great win, and Braden Morgan, Tyrone Beatty. We talked about some of their guys last. They just got their guard play is great. They hound you defensively. They can score from all over the place. It looks like they can play a multitude of different styles. They don't mind. You want to play and muck it up, they'll do that. You want to run and gun, they'll do that. I really think Guthrie is they're no longer a sleeper team or a shocker team because when you're 8-0 or whatever they are, they're right there. My third team is Holland Hall out of Tulsa. I love their roster. They got a big win last night. Who'd they beat? I think they beat
7-1, 8-1.
Holland Hall. They beat somebody last night. I want to say they've had a couple of good wins recently. I know
Let's see here. They just played. Let's see. Victory Christian 50-41, and then what was it? Yeah, that's who they just
beat Victory Christian, right?
Yep.
Yeah, see, that's a big win.
Yeah, that's a big win.
I mean, Victory Christian's 3A, but that's a big win. Victory Christian's a good team.
Yep.
But anyways, they Carter Benton, we talked about it. Julian Wilson and Julius Wilson, the brothers. Julius has really been great. And sometimes I get them backwards because their names are so similar. One's a sophomore and one is a junior. But anyways, they've been excellent for them. They're just a team. Ethan Tabor has been good for them. He had a big game the other day for them. So they're just a solid built team, well coached with Teddy Owens. I've got them at number 3 right now, and I think that they're a solid number 3. At 4, I have Carl Albert, and Carl Albert, their record isn't, to me, they've taken a couple losses, but I don't feel like that's indicative of where they're going to be at the end of the year or even in a month or so. I still have Carl Albert.
They lost to Guthrie.
Yes, they've lost to Carl Albert has lost to Guthrie and Crossings.
Yes.
So I have them ranked ahead.
That's nothing to be ashamed of.
No,
those are really good teams.
So I've got Carl Albert at 4 right now, with an asterisk next to that because I believe they're a top team when it gets said and done.
Yep.
At 5, I've got Booker T. Washington, and I've really been impressed with Booker T. Baron Harris has been excellent for them. He's a junior. Jamari Simpson is a junior. They've got a sophomore that may not be Mason Machulis, who I think is going to be a stud kid for them in the sophomore class. He's been excellent shooting, get into the rim. He's special. They've got Isaac Sanders. They're just loaded with guards. They play a fun style of basketball.
Up and down.
Yeah, Booker T seems to always be in the mix. I love them. And then my fringe team, for me, Midwest City is right there. And when we talked about Midwest City and their star power, with Midwest City, I just think they just need more playing time together. They would be, they'd be in my top 3 if this was maybe a month from now and they figured out the way that they need to play and what suits their style best. So I've got them there. I got a couple surprise, maybe not. Tahlequah's been very good this year. Tahlequah has got some good wins under their belt. I'm a fan of what they're doing, and Lawton Mack is a team.
Yep.
Lawton Mack, and I knew this at the scrimmages of Weatherford and Weatherford, Carl Albert, and them.
Yep.
I was tweeting about some of the guys on their team and what they looked like again. I figured if they could hang with those 2 teams, they can hang. And they're having a great start. They've got a couple guards. TK, I know, is a guy that plays for them, and Brandon Malone, the big dude. I love him. So sophomore. TK Taylor. Anyways, but I like some of the guys that they have. That would be my fringe 5A right now. And now you can shoot to me and tell me what.
Well, Crossings looks as good as anybody right now. I mean, and I'm talking any class.
Yeah.
I think they look really, really good. I'm going to put Guthrie at number 2 because I think obviously being 7-0 this deep into a season, winning some big games like they have, obviously beating Carl Albert, I'm going to put them at number 2. If you beat the team that I had preseason at number 1 or 2, I'm going to put you there, right? So I put them there. I still have Carl Albert at that 5 spot. I think I put Booker T and Midwest City in that, and then round out my top 5. The teams I have on, and you mentioned one, Lawton MacArthur. I have them on the fringe. I like El Reno too. They've got some players on that team that I've watched grow up. They've got some toughness on that team. I like El Reno. Holland Hall, you mentioned that earlier. You have them in your top 5. I would probably just have them just outside. but definitely could move into that range, with another couple wins and things play out the right way. You mentioned Collinsville is another one. They're undefeated right now. I believe
think
they
just
are.
took their first loss
Or did
last
they
night.
take
I
their
think
first
they
loss?
did just take their first one last night.
Okay, let me see. Yeah, they did take. They lost. Let's see who. Let's see here. They lost to
But they
Tahlequah.
and I just mentioned Tahlequah. That's why I said Tahlequah's got some good wins under them.
61-59. That was a nail biter. So yeah.
Yep.
No, I mean Tahlequah obviously probably get some love too there on that fringe. But
but Collinsville has been excellent. Zach Brown, a big dude, is a load. He's a tough kid to stop. I mean, he's so skilled. But that's why I said I got to throw love to Tahlequah because they're out here beating teams that probably people didn't think they could, and they're having an excellent season.
You could probably take the top 10, 11, 12 teams from 5A, and all of them have a chance to make an impact when it comes late in the season. I mean, it's a stacked field. You got a lot. It's very competitive. My thing is when you get into these tournaments or when they get to play each other, then you can really begin to. And we watch Carl Albert and Crossings play each other, so we know definitively, how they match up, what the pros and cons are, where they're at right now, this part of the season.
Yeah.
Basically what sets they run, how that matchup goes against each other. So we've been able to see that, and that's dictated in my mind in terms of how I look at Crossings. But you mentioned Booker T and how they play. I mean, that could be Booker T could be a team because of the up and down style, loaded with guards, quickness. It's all style of play, right? That's how and who matches up with who and how that works. So a lot of good teams in 5A.
Yeah, and adjustments because teams that are going to have to play each other twice, then you see what kind of changes that they make and how they respond to that. So that's the next step in these districts is. I think Crossings, if I'm correct, Crossings and Carl Albert got to play again.
Yeah.
So I said something like, we'll see them in March. Yeah. They're going to be playing before that.
Yep.
And it will be at Carl Albert. So we'll see how that goes.
It'll be a different game than it was the first time.
Yes. And I definitely probably find out when that is, and I will definitely be tuned in for that game. No doubt about it.
Along with everyone else.
Everyone else, for sure. So we go from 5A to jump into 4A. Number one, I'm sticking with Weatherford until otherwise. I mean, they're Anadarko actually hung with them last night in the first half.
Yep.
And then that was it because they turned it on and
20-point win.
Yeah, and C.J. Nixon and Ethan Sage, Rearman, they put up some monster stat lines across the board.
Both, all that's rogue elite.
Time it's nice to talk about your guys. I don't blame you, but that Weatherford definitely number one. Two, I have Douglas still. I love that they picked up a win in Arkansas against PC West as a 3-point win.
Yeah.
If Douglas is going to have – Douglas could change – we will see. There could be changes to the Douglas roster down the line. We'll figure that out.
Yeah, we'll see.
That will also sort itself out, and that could change my opinion on them as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, it could change a lot of people's opinion.
Absolutely. We will get into that. Stay tuned to be continued on that.
Yes.
But I got Douglas at 2. Love what I've seen from Landry Ballard. Love what I've seen from Devon Scott.
Yeah.
Love Jaden Williams, Matty House, the freshman. Matty House has been great. Kingston, Lemons, love him. Just an energy spark plug guy off the bench. I like that team still. Steve going to get them ready to play no matter who they play. So, by the way, pencil me in for Millwood Douglas. I said that on X, Twitter.
Googly eyes.
I don't know if I'm ever going to call it X, to be honest with you. I think it's stupid, but I don't own it. I'm not the billionaire. But
I like who owns it
not
now.
Yet. We'll stick with Twitter. I definitely am locked in to see that game for many of reasons. I have North Rock Creek at number 3, and they were really good last year. They lost some guys, so I honestly thought that they might be down a little bit.
Yep.
No, that's not the case because if you look at their games, they're blasting teams. They're not just beating them. They're killing them.
Mm-hmm.
They're killing them. So NRC, definitely a squad you got to watch. Devin Haney, good player for them. I got a couple guys on their team. I want to say Caleb Hawkins is on that team. Kid is top football, basketball stud. But, I mean, he's about as athletic as they come. He had a couple dunks in the some of these preseason showcases and stuff, which brought the house down. I like him a lot. I like them a lot. At that was 3 for NRC. 4, and we differ a little bit from the OSSAA rankings. I've got Medill at 4. I just believe they're undefeated. First of all, they got him at like 8.
Yep.
Is what it is. What they have in Ethan Wilkerson is someone that can't be stopped. I mean, he's averaging like 28.5 points, like 14. I mean, his statistics are nuts, but he's a kid that's been battle-tested in the EYBL for 4 straight years. 4 straight years. So
playing EYBL for 4 straight years, you're a player.
And he's one of the main pieces on Pro Skills and was. So I definitely think that he doesn't get his just due in the state of Oklahoma. Being in Medill, maybe that's why. I mean, he is a stud. And just simply when you have a kid that big and physically strong, that's skilled, any night that he goes out, it's just going to be a tough stop. You can't really stop him. So you just hope to contain the rest of the team.
Who do you have for 5? This one's a tough one, man.
5, and it was because I have about – we'll get into the French teams. I went with Perkins Tryon. I really like their squad.
Undefeated too.
I really like Tucker Shepard. I talked to a couple college coaches the other day. They hit me up like for a wing that can shoot, and the first dude I gave them was Tucker Shepard. I like him that much. I think he's got great positional size at 6'4 plus. Can shoot, handle the ball like a guard. I mean, I just like the kid. I like the team. They got some athleticism on the perimeter. They're a team to me. Now, that 5 to me could be very interchangeable, and I'm going to talk about why. Bethany, very good squad. Bridge Creek, very good squad. Sequoia Claremore, very good squad. The team that I might put over all of them, and I do believe that they have a loss, Inola.
Inola has 2 losses.
Okay, and I would. This is where I said I might throw losses and wins out. Head to head, I gotta respect it.
You've got 2 players on that Inola team that are really good.
They're really good. Really good. Aiden Clark, the sophomore, is. I mean, is he a reincarnation of Charles Barkley? He might be. He's that type of guy. He's got a big body. He looks like a tight end. He's 6'6", but he's got guard skills and he's explosive. He can jump out the gym. I mean. He can handle it. There's no one staying in front of him because of his strength. I mean, he's just gonna,
especially for this young.
He lowers his shoulder, you're flying off him anyway. So and he's got good feet. He's quick. I mean, he's got a good first step. He can shoot it from the mid range. I love him. Jackson Welch, the senior, excellent. Always has been. Catch and shoot specialist.
6'6", 6'7",
6'6". Just knockdown shooter.
Really good shooter.
I like that team. So they may have 2 losses, and I know Bethany and I think Bridge Creek, they're undefeated. I like Inola just off the eye test, but I will not sleep on Bethany. Aiden Todd is putting up video game numbers. Wyatt Gessler, they're putting up some video games type numbers for Bethany. Coach Cannon got them really playing well. Love them. Bridge Creek too. Bridge Creek had a monster season last year. They just continue it on. Can't sleep on those guys. They've been there, done that. So everybody want to argue with spots 4 through and on. We'll have an argument there in that class. There's just no doubt about it. I wouldn't expect anything. So let's see what you got for 4A.
I've got Weatherford. I'm penciling them in, and I'll probably stick with that regardless. I am going to give the edge to North Rock Creek. Just because they've been blowing people out. I think Douglas is really good, and there could be some things change and evolve with that team. But I put them right now at my 3 spot. But that could you could go either way with 2 or 3 there. But North Rock Creek has been playing outstanding, so I'm going to give them for the sheer fact that they're undefeated. Now Douglas has played some high level tournaments outside of state, and I'm not going to knock them for that. That's only going to prepare them for later in the year, and they're playing top level competition. So and they've played tough games and played competitive in those games. So Douglas is still going to be there, and like I said, could end up still winning the gold ball. I think I'm going to put I'm going to put Medill at the 4 spot, and I'm going to put.
Did you have Douglas at? So you have Douglas at 3?
3.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I'm going to put Medill at the 4 spot,
So
and
that's where I've got them.
I'm going to put Bethany at my 5 spot.
Okay. Really can't go wrong with that.
I mean,
we talked about it.
Perkins, Triton, they're undefeated, really, really good team. Right outside of that, I'm just putting them. That's just where my gut says they need to be right now. I say that Bridge Creek, I really like Bridge Creek, and to your point, Enola is really, really good, and Anadarko stayed with Weatherford for basically a half. They were down I think 6 at half, 29-23, something like that at half. They've just got to figure out how to close and stay tight in the second half, but still really good. Blanchard, competitive. Ada's 6-1 right now. There's a lot of teams that are in that mix.
Same pack. Yeah, they're all in a pack there. I mean, Anadarko, I like them. I just think early on they have a good schedule. They're playing well. They competed in that first half.
Yep.
I think when they get into the meat and potatoes of their schedule, if they have to play some of these teams, it may get a little different. But I do like Anadarko. Always have. They're well coached.
Yeah, and I would say on the east side, you mentioned Sequoia. Sequoia's 6-1.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't throw out. You've got a couple other teams on that east side as well. Catoosa's on the fringe of the rankings. Mm-hmm. You've got some teams there that could make some noise. Ardmore is always competitive. Tuttle's had some really good years. I don't know a whole lot about Tuttle since from last year. Last year I knew that group really, really well, and I obviously, but 6-2, so you can't. Community Christian 5-2, lot of fringe teams there that kind of teams jump into it.
Teams that just need to grow up as the season goes along. Some of these teams I wouldn't be stunned if they jump up there.
Yep.
But if I'm looking at this, Inola is the team to me that could vault up to the top.
Oh yeah, because
now,
they've got
they
the
going to
players
jump over Weatherford? No, not right now.
No.
Douglas, maybe not, but they're right in that fringe. They definitely could get into that 3 spot.
Yep.
And you never know when you got guys like that with size and can shoot. Anything.
They're going to go on a run. There's no doubt about that.
No doubt about it.
Yep.
Let's jump into 3A.
Yep.
3A, I've stuck with Millwood because Millwood to me is what you talked about with Douglas. They're going out and playing. They're battle testing themselves outside of the state against national level teams. And I have to reward teams for doing that because iron sharpens iron.
Yep.
And it only makes you better when you got to come back home and play in 3A, which this might be the most loaded I've seen 3A in a long time.
Yep, it's really good.
Like typically 3 or 4 teams are good. There's like 8, 9 teams right now that I really like. And I thought this might have been the hardest doing 3A. It literally might have been the hardest one for me to choose.
Yep.
So because Millwood has went out and played some of these bigger teams.
I still got them at 1.
And took it lumps. I got them at 1.
Yeah.
We'll see. 2, I have OCS. I think we talked about it enough. You watched them. You just watched them last weekend or whatever.
Yeah.
Luke Gray, Carson Jones. They got size.
Number 2.
Yep. Junior down there. They've got legitimate post size. They've got good guards. Kyler Brown's good.
Yep.
Big fan of OCS. I actually just like the way they play.
Me too.
I think that when it comes down to playoffs, it will be Luke Gray has to become the man. It's got to be the show because I believe Carson Jones is going to do what he does.
Yep.
It's just no team has a real matchup for Luke. When
Correct.
Luke takes over the paint, there's not many that can stop him.
I think the big thing for Luke is staying out of foul trouble. I think if he can stay out of foul trouble, you're right.
That's it.
Who's going to answer? Who's going to answer him?
There are not many that got it.
Yep.
At 3, I have Victory Christian. They knocked off Metro Christian. Chris Mason had 17 points in the fourth quarter. He was exceptional. They've got a shooters in Connor Hislop. They've got we talked about last podcast. I think I told you Gene Mason, the younger brother. He is a high level potential prospect in the 2027 class. Only a freshman. 6'3.5", maybe 6'4".
Man,
now.
there's so many to choose from in this class.
So many. That's why I said 3A is tough. So I've got them at 3. At 4, I've got Idabel. Idabel is, we want to call him a shocker, whatever we want to call him. I didn't talk about him in the beginning. they changed my mind, and they've earned my respect.
Yep.
JP Sumo, the senior, having a monster, season. Cordavius Hankins, another 25 guard they got, putting up monster numbers. Ida Bell is blasting people.
Yep.
Ida Bell is definitely a contender right now. They aren't just like a team on the fringe.
Yep.
They can win this.
Yeah, they can win the whole thing.
It all. They can win it all right now.
Yep.
So Ida Bell, I got them at 4. 5, I've got.
This is the one that.
This was hard.
Yeah.
And we had Metro at the top. Metro's taken a couple losses.
Yeah.
I do like Metro Christian's roster.
Yeah.
I have Cassia Hall at number 5.
There's 3 teams I'm thinking after moving Metro Christian out. I think they're a fringe team. They've lost 2. Good team, could definitely move back up into it.
Yep.
But I look at Crooked Oak, Cassia Hall, and Atoka.
And Atoka, we talked about.
And Roland's in there too, but
Yep,
I think Atoka, I just.
And those are my fringe teams. But 5, I've got Cassia Hall. I think that Jason Kim is versatile at 6'4", 6'5",
Yep.
guard.
Good positional size.
Dallas Lowe is one of the top freshmen in the state. I mean, he's putting up crazy numbers for a freshman right now in 3A. People need to pay attention to Dallas Lowe. He was at Booker T and switched over. He's a stud. Daniel and Drake Jarrett, the twins, they're football guys too.
Yep.
They play hard. Excellent.
With Cassia
tough.
Hall right now is that they're showing 3-0. I'm wondering, I mean, is that even correct? Because
I think they play more games than
I was
that.
going to say that doesn't seem right to me, but it is correct. Last game they had was 12-16. They don't play again until January 2nd.
Yeah, so
they're
they have a
3-0.
weird schedule then.
Yeah, it's backloaded basically.
Yeah, yep. So they I like them.
Certainly no arguments there.
No, and we're going to find out more about Cassia Hall when they play Holland Hall in January. They play Holland Hall and Metro Christian back to back. They play at Millwood. They play Victory. They're going to have their battle tested. So yes, me right now looking at them, they haven't maybe played the Murderers Row yet, like some of these other squads.
Yeah.
But from what I've seen from them on court,
They're going to be there.
the guard play is great. They're going to be there. That's who I've got at that. So that would mean Metro, like you just said, Metro Christian's right there.
Yep.
They can easily work their way back in. They've got a tough. Matter of fact, they could jump this list at the Tournament of Champions this week.
Yep.
They turn around and knock off Owasso in the first round.
Oh yeah, you're immediately you go right up there, number 2.
We're bumping them up. So
number 1, number 2.
them, Crooked Oak, Elijah Garcia, the Martinez brothers, love Crooked Oak.
Yep, I
Crooked
like
Oak
Crooked
was
Oak.
another team that when they lost Tymir, who was I think their all-time
Yes,
leading
all-time
scorer
leading scorer.
and everything. I mean, did he have like 3,000? I mean, it was like a crazy number amount of points.
Video game numbers.
Nuts. Shout out to him. They rebuilt. I mean, they retooled.
Speaking of Tymir, where did he end up going?
He's at Southwestern Christian.
Okay.
That's where I believe he's at. So
Got it.
At least last
for
time
him.
I checked, he was.
Good.
Atoka was one of the teams I mentioned in
Yes.
in our preseason
Yes.
that not anybody had.
Nope.
You'd had to known.
Yep.
Hey, anywhere a Holloman goes, I'm gonna put my money on it.
Yep.
That something will probably happen because those kids can flat out play. We talked about them in one of the other episodes. Their ball. Adonis had a monster game last night.
I
they
just have
knocked
them on
off-
my fringe too, but just right outside of it.
they're great. They've got a couple other guys.
Only
I love
difference I would say from mine to yours, I would have Crooked Oak in my top 5. You have Cassia Hall. I would put
Yes.
them right outside of that.
Yep.
Metro Christian probably. I would put them on because of the 2 losses this early in the season.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot because when you're playing tough teams, you lose.
Yep.
That's just part of it.
Yep.
And I think that's why they're ranked in the top 5. Don't have necessarily a problem with that.
Yep.
But if I look at the other teams that you just named, Atoka, Cassia Hall, Crooked Oak, I just give them the nod above them in terms of I put them at the bottom of my fringe, but still there.
Yeah, and just like a lot of this is going to work its way out. These teams are going to play each other.
Yep.
When the head-to-heads happen, we will adjust as we go. And that's why I said some of these teams, you just got to take them for what they are. Victory, they've got to win over Metro. They deserve to be ahead of them. Ida Bell is undefeated right now. Millwood's only losses came out of state. So Before we jump into 2A,
let's do a quick little shout out to Nate Logan. Nate Logan Elite Basketball, training out of Destiny Christian High School in Del City, Oklahoma. He provides an affordable group and individual training options every week. Logan Elite Training aims to help players develop their skill sets, basketball IQ, confidence, ultimately helping them become more prepared for their current teams as well as the next level. And that's what we're here to talk about is, the kids here in high school and preparing for the next level. Logan Elite currently trains some of the best high school and junior high players, including the #1 player in Oklahoma. Visit LoganEliteBasketball.com or message him on Instagram at @NateLogan_Logan Elite for more information on how to get signed up. Shout out to Nate. He's one of the best to do it, and I'm meaning to get with you, Nate, on for me personally, over the break, get a couple workouts in for my own at the house.
I was thinking you were about to talk about yourself.
No, not me.
Coming out of retirement?
No, man. Those days have sailed.
Are we ready to have the flagrant 2?
the broken knees and back? No. But, Nate, I'll be reaching out to you, trying to get some workouts in over the Christmas break, keep things sharp going into the second half of the season for my son. So, but shout out to Nate. Does a great job and doing great things with the kids in high school ball. And obviously, he still trains college guys too. So I'm looking to take part in that.
And I think that, as we get into, and we really appreciate Nate as one of our sponsors,
yes.
and definitely, we keep talking about it. It's not always a financial sponsorship that you need. Hop on the YouTube page for Flagrant 2. Give a like, subscribe, turn on the notifications. Like that,
it's simple.
Support like that goes a long way to keep this stuff going. We're going to hammer it home every time we do one of these. Yes,
please and thank you.
And we talked about it. As soon as we can get to 500 followers and 1,000, we're going to be giving away Okie Ball stuff along with the Flagrant 2
merch.
We'll give away a gift bag of all kinds of stuff. So definitely, we'll just pick random from one of our subscribers. But you got to be a subscriber to be in that into that raffle.
Yeah, all we're asking is something simple. Help us out. It's not asking too much. And like we said earlier, we're doing this for the kids and trying to promote these teams and these kids in the play to get them at the next level. All we're asking for is that simple support.
Yep. And then the last thing we finish up with 2A, and I was going to say that if we go back to look at our preseason picks, I think that almost every one of these is pretty much the way we went, except for
about 90% of them.
In 5A, we moved Carl Albert down just due to the fact that they've lost lost in their conference, I guess, or district, whatever.
Yep.
So other than that, North Owasso at 6A, 4A Weatherford Douglas, 3A Millwood OCS, and 2A is going to be the same thing. Dale at 1 and Pecola at 2. I mean, Pecola did not start out at 2 in the coaches, so I believe we had them pegged prior, and simply with the star power that they have, and I think Garrett Scott and Dakota Terrell. I mean, Dakota Terrell would be a star in 6A, and Garrett Scott could definitely get along in that too.
Yeah.
But Dakota Terrell, I've talked about as a budding star. People will finally catch up to him eventually. I mean, coaches will be, if they're not on him, they will be. He's got great size. He's about 6'9" now.
Yes.
He moves like a guard. So, I mean, he's fluid.
In 2A.
Yes. That's why I say you can't count
dangerous.
them out. You can't count them out.
No.
I mean, not with that. So we were right on with them. I probably would have Hennessy at 3 now, and Preston at 4. So other than the OSSAA has it reversed there, and we love Preston. We picked them as a possible, team that could win the whole thing because they were there last year.
They're always
competitive. Got some great players too. Gervais Garay seems like he's been around forever, and he just always dominates. Now they Fairland, you could go Fairland. Hooker hasn't played very many games. I actually like them. I think they've got some size in the post. I think they could be up there. They would be my fringe team. I would say 5 is Fairland. So that's one of the only ones on the OSSAA that I kind of agree with. I would just flip, for me, Preston and Hennessy right now. just simply because I think that Hennessy's only lost once.
Hennessy's 5-1, Preston 6-2.
They both passed the eye test when I watch them. They're very good teams, regardless of class. So those would be my teams. Hooker would be the one that OSSAA has 8. I would have them right around 6 or 7, probably moving up. I think like some of these teams we've seen, they've only played a few games, so it's kind of hard.
Yeah.
But I like what I've seen from them. So.
Yeah, I would say Dale, Pecola. I would move Hennessy to 3.
Yeah.
I would move Fairland to 4, and Preston to 5 probably.
Yep.
I mean, and you've got, is it Hoktaha? How do you pronounce that?
Oktaha?
Oktaha.
Yeah.
I mean, they're 8-1. They're just nipping on the heels of the top 5. So, and then you got Hobart, which is 6-1, not far behind. And Hooker's got that loaded schedule as well.
Yeah.
They're 2-0.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, after that you've got 2 and 3 lost teams, and it gets Van Nuys is 10-4, just outside the top 10. So, you've got it's loaded there in terms of that back half is very consistently fringe teams, I would call them. The top is, I mean, when you get Dale and Pecola, come on, man, these are teams that could compete well outside of, and maybe some of the other teams too could compete outside of 2A. But,
no doubt. And
Dale's one of the best teams in the state.
And I think that as we go into the TOC, we've given our predictions in that. As we go to the TOC next week, at that point, we may be ready to give a top 5 overall, regardless of class.
A week from today.
Yeah, I think that's what we can do after that, because depending on Dale's matchups, it might tell us all we need to know.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here. That's the game, Dale and Owasso game, that I'm just sitting here thinking, man, that's if they get.
We don't want to look ahead.
No,
we don't want to look ahead because
they've got first round,
and we didn't talk about Class A, but I'll just tell you that OK and Caddo were our picks from the beginning of the season.
Yep.
We stick with them. OK is undefeated.
Yep.
They can flat out shoot the ball from the perimeter.
8-0. Caddo's 4-2.
Yep. OK might surprise. I mean, I'm not picking them to beat Edmond North.
Yeah.
But people might be surprised that they hang with them in the first half.
Well, I mean, if you can shoot the basketball, it cures a lot of ills.
No,
right?
they can. Diesel Davis. They got some guys that can flat out stroke the ball.
And I'll throw a little shout out to Class B too while we're here. Calumet's 11-0. Folks, they've got all but I don't know how many of the first place votes, but they've got majority all of them by themselves. So Calumet, shout out to Calumet, and then you've got Fort Cobb, Duke, Earlsboro, and Frontier that round out the top 5 for OSSAA. So,
and I was just going to say we got people saying like, oh, I like Edmond North, I like Owasso, I like Dale, like as the best team in the state. Well, this can all work its way out.
Yep.
If Dale gets in the second round and beats Owasso and then goes to the finals and beats Edmond North, well, there you go.
There you go.
There's your number
Proof's
one
in the
team.
pudding.
There's your number one team in the state.
And very well could do that.
And it's possible.
Yep.
It's definitely possible.
Talk about shooters and guys that can get that team's well rounded and good coaching, the whole 9.
Yeah. Now and then if we predicted, we said we picked Owasso to knock off Dale, and then Owasso to play Edmond North. That easily could tell us if Owasso wins this thing, then they're the best team right now.
Yep.
That will all work its way out, and that helps when you have all the teams in one tournament.
Yep.
It's easy for us to then decide that. It's much harder when these teams aren't playing each other.
It'd be really fun to see if you could get. And you have to schedule, so that it's not even possible for me to say this, but it's fun conversationally, is to take, teams, the top 2 or 3 teams from each class and have a midseason tournament. How fun would that be every year? I mean, try to play top level talent in teams that early to kind of see where you measure and see where you match up. I mean, that would be so much fun. I mean, tournament champions is that. Just maybe not as many of the teams as you might love to have. I mean, we're wishing here, right? So that would be a lot of fun. But I can't wait. It's a week from today, and I will be watching for sure. And cannot wait for it. So
no, I think that we're definitely looking forward to that. And I think that what you just said is like if these teams could play each other, like you said in the midseason tournament, I just think that's why teams are now picking to go out of state a lot.
Yep.
I think they're figuring like that way I can guarantee myself a top level matchup. Whether we take a whether we take a ass whooping or not.
Nobody
it is what it
wants
is.
to kill teams by 30 and 40. I mean, what do you learn from that? I mean, you're not getting better as a team when you do that.
And getting national exposure, just like in AAU, is what everybody wants. It's like I want to get my high school team out there to see how do we match up against some of the best in a region or best in another state, and that tells us a lot. And when we go back home, it just makes us that much better. So we have a lot to look forward to in the next couple weeks. Mustang Classic starts next weekend. TOC, I'll be there at least a couple days. I'm gonna be there no matter what.
You and I will both be there.
We'll be at that. The following week, the Bishop McGinnis class, which is always one of my favorite tournaments. It's got a nice little field loaded down. So we'll definitely have a lot to talk about. And we'll be taking off next week for Christmas break and TOC. We'll return in January.
But plenty to talk about with cool guests coming up. Everything.
We got some great guests. So stay tuned. I'm talking about some guests that might surprise you and definitely will give us a great episode. So,
and if you see us out at the games, come up and say hello. We're not strangers. Come up and say hi. We'd love to talk to you.
Nope. And if you see anything, Flagrant 2, mugs, hoodies, shirts, we're going to have all that merchandise ready to go. If you guys are going to look into something like that, shoot us a DM. Let us know. We'll start marketing it on all of our socials pretty soon. But we're just, trying to kind of feel out what people like and what they want. But all we got to say is appreciate you, Oklahoma, and we're out.
Out.